Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Higher Learning Test Prep's online video tutorial series. Today we're looking at number 20 from SAT Practice Test 1. So this question asks if a equals 5 root 2 and 2a equals root 2x, that is the quantity root 2x, what is the value of x? Alright, so there's, as always with algebra, multiple ways to arrive at the same place. That is, you could start a couple of ways, so maybe we'll look at both of them. The first method that might strike you is to simply take this information, a equals 5 root 2, and 2a equals the square root of the quantity 2x, and combine that information. And they say, well, if a equals 5 root 2, then I could, say 2 times a is the same thing as 2 times 5 root 2. And you could think about, putting these in parentheses, but that doesn't really matter since ultimately 5 root 2 just means 5 times root 2. So it's not like we have to distribute this 2. It's all multiplication. There's no distribution necessary. All right, well, if that's what 2a equals, we could write 2a as 2 times 5, which is just 10 times root 2. Okay, great. Now, I'm interested in expressing, we essentially have these two things. We have 10 square root 2, and we have the square root of 2x. Those are both equal to 2a. So I could, on the end of my little train of equal signs here, put the square root of 2x. And then we could do a couple of things. This is where we get into the two different methods. The first method would be to square both sides. And if you square both sides, we'll put this in parentheses so we can see that the whole thing is getting squared. And if you're wondering, why are you squaring both sides, dude? What's the point of that? Well, we're squaring both sides because we want to get rid of that radical sign, the square root sign, because it's a pain in the butt, and we really can't do anything with it as is right now. Or so it may appear. So if you square both sides, it's the same thing as squaring both individual components. So 10 squared is 100. Root 2 squared is simply 2. And on this side, if we square everything under the radical, it just turns into 2x. And you could kind of skip a step here at the end if you kind of realize, well, 100 times 2 is the same thing as 2 times x. That means 100 is x. If you didn't quite see that, you could just multiply this out. 100 times 2 is 200 equals 2x. Divide by 2 on both sides. And get 100 equals x. So conversely, I'll kind of draw a little squiggly line here and show you the second way, which departs from this same situation. Really, it departs from the same situation. That is, you could say 10 square root 2 equals 2x, or the square root of 2x. And you could say, well, instead of getting rid of my radical signs, why don't I just put everything under the radical signs? And even if you approached it over here in this way, that's cool, but you should be able to do what we're about to show you on the left here. That is, express 10 as a square root. It's the square root of 100. And just rewrite your equation, only now you have 10 written as a square root of 100. Then combine these, and this is the important thing that you got to be able to do for this test. This is the same thing as 100 times 2, all under a radical sign, is equal to 2x. And by the same token that we said over here, well, if 100 times 2 is the same thing as 2 times x, you could say, well, if the square root of 100 times 2 is the same thing as the square root of 2 times x, once again, x must be 100. If that wasn't perfectly clear, you could do a little bit more work. Square root of 200 is equal to the square root of 2x. And then you could square both sides and just get 200 equals 2x, and lastly, x equals 100. Ran out of room there at the end, but maybe we'll just put a little arrow here. If 200 is equal to 2x, then 100 is equal to x. Two different ways to arrive at this problem. It's number 20 from the first practice test, and because the test increases in difficulty, this is considered a hard question. But as you can see, it's not really that difficult. You can definitely do it. But take stock of the things we need to be able to do here. We need to be able to negotiate the use of radical signs by either putting stuff back under the radical like we did on this side, or getting rid of the radical signs altogether that we did over here. So hope that was helpful. Look forward to helping you some more. If you give me just a chance, I promise I can help. Now, feel free to reach out whenever you need it. HigherLearningTestPrep.com, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.